My name is Jessica Palmer and I'm 28 years old. The mail that day was mostly junk, until I spotted an envelope with familiar handwriting that made my heart stop. After 3 years of silence, my father had written to me. My fingers trembled as I traced the loops of his penmanship, memories of our painful falling out flooding back. I hesitated before opening it, torn between hope for reconciliation and dread of more pain. Something about the letter seemed off, though. I couldn't quite place it. Before I tell you what was inside that envelope that changed everything, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to rebuild trust with someone who hurt you. Seattle had been my escape. For years living in this rainy city, and I'd managed to build something resembling a life. My apartment wasn't much, a one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of an old brick building in Capitol Hill with a temperamental radiator and a view of the neighbor's fire escape, but it was mine. Dad had never seen it. He wouldn't know about the photography wall I'd created, black and white prints from our Sunday walks that felt like displaying memories from another life. At Pixel Perfect, the boutique marketing firm where I worked as a graphic designer, I had earned enough respect to lead campaigns for some of our bigger clients. My desk was adorned with a small potted succulent, the only plant I couldn't kill, a framed photo of my mom, and precisely 0 pictures of my father. I had built this life deliberately, brick by brick, without him. It hadn't always been that way. Growing up in our modest 2-story in Portland, Robert Palmer was my hero. He wore his salt and pepper hair in the same style for 20 years, favored flannel shirts regardless of season, and could fix anything from a leaky faucet to a broken heart with seemingly equal ease. "Jesse," he'd say, "life's going to throw curveballs. The trick is learning how to swing anyway." When Mom got sick, he became a man possessed by determination. Grace Palmer fought breast cancer with the same quiet dignity she approached everything in life, but stage 4 is stage 4. I was 15 when she died, holding both our hands in the hospice room that smelled of antiseptic and ending. Dad and I became each other's lifelines. While other fathers of teenage daughters might have floundered, he stepped up in ways I couldn't fully appreciate until adulthood. He learned to French braid my hair because Mom always did it before school. He attended every parent-teacher conference, chaperoned field trips, and sat through excruciating dance recitals with genuine interest. When I had my heart broken by my first boyfriend, Dad made hot chocolate and listened without judgment as I cried until 2 a.m. But photography, that was our special thing. Dad had been an amateur photographer before the demands of family life and his accounting job took precedence. When I showed interest at 16, he pulled his old Nikon from storage and taught me everything he knew. Our Sunday photo walks became sacred ritual. We'd wake early, pack thermoses of coffee, and spend hours wandering trails or urban streets, talking about everything and nothing between clicks of the shutter. "Photography isn't about capturing what's there," he'd explain, adjusting my grip on the camera. "It's about preserving how it feels to be there in that moment." Our house, though missing Mom, remained warm. Pictures of her stayed on the walls. Her gardening books remained on shelves. Her favorite quilt still draped across the living room sofa. Dad kept her alive in small, meaningful ways, telling stories about their early days, maintaining her rose bushes despite his black thumb, making her special Christmas cookies from her handwritten recipe. Through those years, Megan Davis was my constant. We'd been best friends since 4th grade, and she helped me navigate the fog of grief. A born optimist with curly red hair and a psychology major, she had an uncanny ability to know when to offer advice and when to just bring ice cream and sit in silence. "You and your dad," she said once, "it's like you forged this unbreakable bond in the fire." I believed that too. The therapist I started seeing after the estrangement, Dr. Landry, a soft-spoken woman with gray hair and penetrating eyes, helped me understand the depth of my abandonment issues. When you lose a parent at 15, and then feel rejected by the remaining parent at 25, it creates profound wounds, she explained during one session. The child in you still can't understand why the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally can leave. By the time I met Tyler Robinson at a friend's housewarming party 2 years ago, I had mostly stopped talking about my father. Tyler knew the basics, estranged for reasons I wasn't ready to fully discuss, and respected the boundary. A software engineer with kind eyes and a quiet confidence, he became a steady presence in my carefully reconstructed life. He'd never met my father, only knew him through the selective stories I shared during vulnerable moments. "Whenever you're ready to talk about it more, I'm here," he would say, never pushing. But even as I built this new life, the absence of my father remained a negative space I designed around, like artists who define their subject by the emptiness surrounding it. I can still remember the exact moment everything shattered between us. May 17th, 3 years ago. I had driven down to Portland for the weekend, something I did monthly to maintain our close relationship despite the 3-hour distance. The visit started normally. Dad picked me up from the bus station, we grabbed lunch at our favorite diner, and headed home. It wasn't until we pulled into the driveway that I noticed the unfamiliar blue Subaru parked in front. "Whose car is that?" I asked, feeling a strange tension rise in my throat. Dad's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "That's Diane's. I wanted you to meet her this weekend." I had known he was dating someone, brief mentions during our phone calls over the past few months, but meeting her hadn't been on the agenda for this visit. I swallowed my surprise and nodded. I was 25, for goodness sake. My father deserved happiness. Diane Mitchell was pleasant enough at first impression, a kindergarten teacher with a warm laugh and sensible shoes. She had clearly made an effort, preparing my favorite lasagna, information obviously supplied by Dad, and asking thoughtful questions about my work and life in Seattle. The bomb dropped after dinner. "Jesse, there's something else we wanted to talk to you about," Dad said, reaching for Diane's hand across the kitchen table. The casual "we" wasn't lost on me. "We're engaged." 6 months. They had known each other 6 months. The engagement ring on her finger caught the light as she nervously twisted it. Wow. "Congratulations," I managed, feeling like I was suddenly underwater. "There's more," Dad continued. "We're planning to sell the house. It's too big for just us, and Diane has a condo closer to her school." The room tilted slightly. This house, my childhood home, the place where Mom had lived and died, where every corner held memories, was being discarded like outdated furniture. "When did you decide this?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "We've been discussing it for a while," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "A while? And you didn't think to mention it during any of our calls?" "This is Mom's house too." Diane shifted uncomfortably. "I'll give you two some space to talk," she said, standing. "No, you don't have to leave," Dad said to her before turning back to me. "Jesse, I know this is a lot at once. But it's been 7 years since your mother passed. We have to move forward. Moving forward doesn't mean erasing her." My voice rose despite my best efforts. "You couldn't even talk to me about this first?" "I just get presented with the decision like some child who doesn't get a vote." "You don't get a vote, Jess. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but this is my house and my life." "Right. Your life. Which apparently now means forgetting Mom." His face hardened. "That's not fair." Something propelled me upstairs to my mother's closet, the one space Dad had preserved exactly as she left it. Except when I opened the door, half the contents were gone. Boxes sat on the floor, filled with her things. "You're already packing her away," I said when he followed me upstairs. "We need to make room for Diane's things," he replied. "Jesse, please try to understand." "Understand what?" "That some woman you've known for 5 minutes is more important than Mom?" "Than me?" "That's enough." His voice rarely raised, and the sharp tone stopped me cold. "Diane is not some woman. She's going to be my wife, and you will respect her. Your mother would have wanted me to find happiness again. Don't you dare speak for her." I shouted, tears burning hot down my cheeks. "You don't get to decide what she would want." "And you do? You were 15 when she died, Jessica. You didn't know her as a wife, as a partner. What would you have me do? Shrine this house like a mausoleum and die alone?" The argument escalated, years of unspoken grief and resentment pouring out from both sides. I accused him of replacing Mom, of trying to erase our past. He accused me of being selfish, of not wanting him to be happy. If you can't be respectful to the woman I love, he finally said, voice shaking with anger, then maybe you should leave until you can. I stood frozen, feeling like he had physically struck me. Fine, I whispered, grabbing my overnight bag. I'll go. Before walking out, I took only one thing besides my clothes, my mother's silver locket with her photo inside. As I slammed the door behind me, I didn't know it would be 3 years before I heard from him again. I tried, at first. Called a week later, when the anger had cooled enough to allow regret to seep in. His response was polite but distant. He was still processing and would call when he was ready. He never did. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts. Responses became increasingly brief. When I texted to tell him about my first photography exhibition, featuring black and white images from our Sunday walks, a tribute to both him and those memories, he replied only, "Congratulations. Sorry I can't make it." He didn't show up. Didn't call. The empty space by the entrance where I'd placed a reserved sign with his name remained unclaimed all evening. After a year of diminishing returns on my emotional investment, I stopped reaching out. Pride, hurt, and exhaustion won out. Megan helped me through the darkest moments, the nights when rejection from the only parent I had left felt like a weight crushing my chest. He's making a choice, Megan said during one particularly bad evening, handing me another tissue. And it's a poor reflection on him, not you. Tyler entered my life during this period of radio silence. On our third date, when he asked about my family and I gave the abbreviated version, he didn't push or offer platitudes. That sounds incredibly painful, he said simply. Thank you for trusting me enough to share it. And somehow, life continued. I built routines that didn't include monthly drives to Portland. I made a chosen family of friends. I advanced in my career. The pain calcified into something I could carry without daily agony. Until the letter arrived. Part 4, the mysterious letter. The envelope was cream-colored, standard size, with a Portland postmark. My address was written in the familiar slant of my father's handwriting, the way his SS always tilted a bit too far forward, how his capital JS had an extra loop. I ran my finger across my name, a gesture both automatic and reverent. Inside was a single sheet of stationery I didn't recognize, pale blue with a simple monogram at the top. My heart pounded as I began to read. Dear Jessica *. I hope this letter finds you well. It's been too long since we've spoken, and that fault lies entirely with me. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you and regretted how things ended between us *. I was stubborn and wrong to push you away. Losing your mother was the hardest thing I've ever experienced, until I lost you too. I realize now that in my rush to find happiness again, I neglected to consider your feelings and honor your mother's memory properly *. Diane and I have separated. The relationship was a mistake born from my fear of being alone. Selling the house was an even bigger mistake. I miss our Sunday photo walks and our talks. I miss being your dad *. I've kept up with your success through mutual friends. I'm so proud of all you've accomplished with your photography. You always did have your mother's eye for beauty in unexpected places *. I'm writing to ask if you would consider meeting me. Perhaps at that coffee shop near our cabin in Montana that you always loved as a child? I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I'm hoping you might give me the chance to earn it *. Your graduation from Berkeley was one of my proudest moments, and I've regretted every day since that I've let my pride keep us apart. Your mother's blue eyes live on in you, and I see her every time I look at your photo *. Please call me at this new number if you're willing to talk, 503-555-7892. I've enclosed my current address as well *. With all my love and deepest regrets *. Dad *. I read it 3 times, emotions cycling between relief, joy, and confusion. Something felt off. Details weren't quite right. We never had a cabin in Montana, Dad hated the cold and we'd never vacationed there. I didn't graduate from Berkeley, I went to Washington State. And my mother's eyes were deep brown, not blue. The kind of rich, chocolate brown that crinkled in the corners when she laughed. It was one of her most distinctive features. These weren't casual mistakes. They were fundamental errors about our shared history that my father would never make. With shaking hands, I dialed the phone number from the letter. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "You've reached Michael. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." The voice wasn't my father's. Not even close. I checked the return address, 1742, Hawthorne Avenue, Portland, Oregon. I plugged it into Google Maps and zoomed in on the street view. It wasn't a house but a multi-unit building with a sign I had to squint to read, "New Beginnings Transitional Housing." My stomach dropped. This wasn't from my father. I called Megan immediately. "Someone's pretending to be my dad," I said when she answered, my voice tight with panic. "They sent me a letter with all these weird mistakes. Like they know some things about me but got major details wrong." "Slow down," Megan said, her therapist voice kicking in. "Are you sure it's not him? Maybe he was confused or in a hurry?" "He'd never forget where I went to college or what color my mom's eyes were," I insisted. "And the return address is for some kind of halfway house." "Okay, that's definitely strange," Megan admitted. "Have you tried contacting your dad directly to confirm?" I hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. The thought of reaching out now, with this bizarre situation as the reason, made my chest tighten. But what choice did I have? "No," I admitted. "I still have his old number. I guess I should try it." "I think you should. If nothing else, he should know someone might be impersonating him." After hanging up with Megan, I stared at my phone for a full 5 minutes before finally pulling up my father's contact, still listed as Dad despite everything. My thumb hovered over the call button before I chickened out and decided to check social media first. I searched for Michael and New Beginnings Portland and found a Facebook profile for Michael Anderson. His profile was mostly private, but his cover photo showed the same building from the return address. According to his public information, he was 52 and had recently marked a life event, Freedom New Chapter, dated just 2 months ago. Something cold settled in my stomach. I clicked through the few public photos and froze when I saw one particular image, Michael standing outside the halfway house, wearing a necklace that looked eerily similar to my mother's locket. ## Part 5, Investigation begins. I finally worked up the courage to call my father's number the next morning. The automated voice telling me the number had been disconnected sent a fresh wave of anxiety through me. How had I not known his number had changed? Had he tried to reach me? Had I missed it somehow? Aunt Susan, my father's younger sister, was my next logical step. We hadn't been close since the estrangement, our once warm relationship becoming another casualty of the fallout. Her Facebook profile showed she was still in Eugene, teaching high school English as she had for 20 years. When she answered my call, the surprise in her voice was palpable. "Jessica? Is everything all right?" "Hi, Aunt Susan. I'm sorry for calling out of the blue. I'm trying to get in touch with Dad, but his number is disconnected." A long pause followed. "You don't know?" My heart rate accelerated. "Know what?" "Your father and Diane moved to Portland about a year ago. She got offered a position as an elementary school principal there. So they were still together." The letter had lied about that too. "Do you have his new number?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I do, but..." She hesitated. "Jessica, are you sure about this? The last time we talked, he was pretty hurt. Said he'd tried to reach out several times." "Had he?" "I'd changed apartments once but kept the same phone number." "Had he sent letters that never reached me?" "I need to talk to him," I insisted. "It's important." She gave me the number reluctantly, making me promise to tell him I'd gotten it from her. "He's doing better now," she added mysteriously. The therapy helped a lot. Therapy? What had happened that my father, who once claimed therapy was just paying someone to listen to you complain, needed professional help? Before calling him, I did more research on Michael Anderson. His Facebook didn't reveal much more, but a Google search turned up a newspaper article from the Portland Tribune. Michael Anderson, 52, had been released from Oregon State Penitentiary after serving 15 years for identity theft, fraud, and stalking. The article mentioned he was participating in a rehabilitation program at New Beginnings. I texted my father with hands so shaky I had to retype twice, "Dad, it's Jessica. Did you recently send me a letter?" While waiting for a response that might never come, I dug deeper into the halfway house. Their website described it as transitional housing for formerly incarcerated individuals reintegrating into society. They offered job placement, counseling, and monitoring. Tyler came over that evening, bringing dinner when I told him about the strange letter. Always practical, he suggested going to the police. "This guy clearly knows details about you," he said, setting down his fork. "He has your address." "That's concerning enough to file a report." "I want to understand why first," I replied. "Why pretend to be my estranged father? What's the angle?" I showed Tyler the Facebook photo with the locket. "That looks exactly like Mom's necklace. The one I took the night Dad and I fought." "Could be a coincidence," Tyler offered, but his furrowed brow suggested he didn't believe it any more than I did. "I need to know who he is and what he wants," I insisted. My phone chimed with a text. My father had finally responded, "No letter." "What's going on? Are you all right?" The first direct communication in 3 years, and it was about this. I explained briefly about receiving a letter from someone claiming to be him. His response came quickly, "That's disturbing." "What did it say?" I summarized without emotion, mentioning the mistakes about Montana, Berkeley, and Mom's eyes. 3 typing dots appeared and disappeared several times before his response came through, "We should talk. Can I call you tomorrow?" Just like that. 3 years of silence, and now he wanted to talk. Because of this bizarre situation, not because he missed me or regretted what happened. "Fine," I texted back. After 6. Tyler watched me set down the phone. "So he's going to call?" "Tomorrow." I rubbed my temples. "But I can't just sit around waiting. I want to know more about this Michael person." I scrolled through Michael's limited public photos again and noticed something I'd missed before. In one picture taken inside what appeared to be the halfway house common room, a bulletin board was visible in the background. Pinned to it was what looked like a group therapy schedule. One session jumped out, "Family Reconnection Strategies, Thursday 7 p.m. Was that what this was about? Some misguided therapy exercise gone wrong? Before I could second-guess myself, I sent Michael a message through Facebook, "I received your letter. I know you're not my father. Who are you and what do you want?" His response came within minutes, "Jessica. I was hoping you'd contact me. There's been a misunderstanding. I never claimed to be your father. I am your father." Michael agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown the next afternoon. Against my better judgment, but with Tyler and Megan's insistence, I arranged for them to sit at a separate table nearby. "Just in case," Megan said, her psychology background making her wary of the situation. I spotted him immediately when I entered, a tall man with graying hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore jeans and a button-down shirt that seemed slightly too large, like he was still adjusting to civilian clothes after prison uniforms. Around his neck was the locket I'd noticed in the photo. Seeing it in person sent a chill down my spine, it was identical to my mother's. "Jessica," he said, standing as I approached. His smile seemed genuinely warm, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would." I remained standing, studying him. Nothing about him seemed familiar. "I want to know why you're pretending to be my father, and how you know details about my life." His smile faltered. "I'm not pretending anything. Please, sit." I'll explain everything. I sat across from him, keeping the table between us. From the corner of my eye, I could see Tyler watching intently from 3 tables away. The letter you sent was filled with mistakes my real father would never make, I said. Mistakes? He looked genuinely confused. We never had a cabin in Montana. I didn't graduate from Berkeley. And my mother's eyes were brown, not blue. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. I see the problem now. You think I'm claiming to be Robert. The casual use of my father's name unsettled me. You signed the letter, Dad. Because I am your dad, Jessica. Your biological father. Robert Palmer is the man who raised you, but I'm your real father. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around me. That's not true. My parents were married for 20 years before my mom died. Michael shook his head. Grace and Robert got married when you were 3. Before that, she was married to me. Grace Walker Anderson. That was her name when we met. You're lying. My voice came out sharper than intended. My mom would have told me if she'd been married before. Would she? You were 15 when she died. There are many things parents don't tell their children until they're older. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small photo album. I've been carrying this since I got out. It was one of the few things I was allowed to keep all these years. He slid it across the table. With reluctant hands, I opened it. The first photo knocked the breath from my lungs. My mother, much younger, maybe 20, stood smiling beside Michael on a beach. Her hair was longer than I'd ever seen it, blowing in the wind, but it was unmistakably her. That's from our honeymoon, Michael said softly. Cannon Beach. Summer of 1991. I flipped through more photos. Mom and Michael in an apartment I didn't recognize. Mom laughing as she painted a wall yellow. Mom blowing out candles on a birthday cake with 25 written in frosting. These could be fake, I said, but uncertainty had crept into my voice. Check the dates on the back, he replied. Each photo was meticulously labeled with dates ranging from 1990 to 1994. The last photo showed my mother holding a baby, me, apparently, looking exhausted but happy in a hospital bed. Written on the back, Jessica Grace Anderson, born 7/14/94. You disappeared from our lives when you were barely 2, Michael continued while I stared at the photo. Grace took you and left. Filed for divorce, got a restraining order against me. Why would she do that? His expression darkened. She claimed I was abusive. That I had problems with anger, with control. I admit I made mistakes. I drank too much back then. We fought. But I loved her. I loved you. Something about his tone set off alarm bells. The way his jaw tightened when he mentioned my mother leaving. If what you're saying is true, why contact me now? After all these years? I've been in prison, he said bluntly. 15 years for crimes I'd rather not get into right now. But I had a lot of time to think, to work on myself. When I got out, finding you was my first priority. You're my daughter. My blood. So you just, what? Decided to pretend you were Robert in a letter to me? I never said I was Robert. His voice rose slightly. I signed it Dad because that's who I am to you. I thought you knew about me. That Robert and Grace would have told you the truth by now. I shook my head, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. Even if what you're saying is true, you don't know me. You haven't been part of my life. Through no choice of my own, he snapped, then immediately softened. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to raise my voice. It's just frustrating. I've missed so much. The locket, I said, pointing to his chest. Where did you get that? His hand went to it protectively. It was Grace's. One of the few things I had left of her. My mother's locket is at my apartment right now. I've had it for years. She must have gotten another one. He shrugged. Or maybe Robert got you a replica after she left me. Something wasn't adding up. His story had too many convenient explanations, too much rehearsed precision. I need to go, I said, standing abruptly. This is too much to process. Jessica, wait. He stood too, reaching for my arm. I stepped back quickly. I just found you. Please don't disappear again. I'm staying at New Beginnings. You can visit anytime or call. I want to be in your life. I can't make any promises, I said, backing toward the door. I need to verify what you've told me. His expression hardened slightly. Ask Robert. He knows the truth. I turned and walked quickly toward the exit, signaling Tyler and Megan to follow. Michael called after me, but I didn't look back. Outside, Tyler put his arm around me as I gulped fresh air. You okay? What happened in there? He claims he's my biological father. That my mom was married to him before Dad. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. He had photos, dates. Did you believe him? Megan asked gently. I don't know what to believe anymore. My father's call came precisely at 6:01 p.m. the next day, just as I was pacing my apartment, rehearsing what to say. Jessica. His voice sounded older, more hesitant than I remembered. It's good to hear your voice. 3 years of silence, and that's what he opened with. No apology. No acknowledgement of how much time had passed. Just it's good to hear your voice as if we'd spoken last week. Hi, Dad. The word felt strange in my mouth after so long. Thanks for calling. An awkward pause followed, neither of us knowing how to bridge the gulf of time and hurt between us. You mentioned a letter? He finally asked. I explained about Michael Anderson, the letter, and yesterday's coffee shop meeting. As I spoke, my father's breathing changed, becoming more rapid and shallow. Dad? Are you still there? Yes. His voice had dropped to almost a whisper. Jessica, we need to talk in person. Not over the phone. Can I come to Seattle? Tomorrow? His urgency surprised me. You want to drive 3 hours to discuss this? Can't you just tell me if what he said is true? It's complicated. He paused. Please, Jess. I'll drive up in the morning. We can meet for lunch. Despite everything, curiosity won out. Fine. Noon at Portage Bay Cafe on Roosevelt. We agreed on the details, and he hesitated before adding, would it be all right if Diane comes too? She's part of this conversation. The last person I wanted to see was Diane, but I sensed pushing back would only complicate things. Fine. Thank you, Jessica. And I've missed you. Very much. I ended the call without responding to that, too confused by the swirl of emotions his voice had triggered to trust my own response. The next day, I arrived at the restaurant 20 minutes early, selecting a corner booth with a good view of the entrance. My stomach churned with anxiety as I watched the door. At exactly noon, they walked in. Dad looked older, his hair now completely gray, his posture slightly stooped. Diane looked much the same, though her hair was shorter. They spotted me immediately, and I saw my father take a deep breath before approaching. Jessica. He hesitated, then leaned in for an awkward half-hug that I didn't fully return. Thank you for meeting us. Diane offered a tentative smile but didn't attempt physical contact. It's good to see you, Jessica. We ordered food that none of us would eat much of, going through the motions of normalcy until the server left us alone with our water glasses and uncomfortable silence. About this man who contacted you, my father finally began, his voice low. Michael Anderson. What exactly did he tell you? I recounted the claims. That he was my biological father, that he and my mother had been married, that she had taken me and left when I was a toddler. With each word, my father seemed to age before my eyes. When I finished, he exchanged a look with Diane, who nodded slightly. I should have told you years ago, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Your mother and I agreed to wait until you were 18, but then after she died, I couldn't bring myself to change how you saw her. How you saw us. Ice filled my veins. So it's true? He's really my father? Biologically speaking, yes. Dad's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass. Grace was married to him for about 4 years. She left him when you were 26 months old. Why? The single word contained all my confusion, hurt, and betrayal. Because he was abusive, Dad said flatly. Not just emotionally. He hurt her, Jessica. Badly. The final time, she ended up in the emergency room with a broken arm and bruised ribs while you were asleep in the next room. That was when she finally left. Diane reached over and took his hand, offering silent support. I met your mother about 3 months after she fled to Portland, he continued. I was doing the accounting for the women's shelter where she was staying temporarily. We became friends first. She was so afraid, always looking over her shoulder. Michael had threatened to find her, to take you away. But how did you become my father? Legally, I mean. Michael was eventually arrested for violating the restraining order repeatedly. He broke into your mother's apartment while she was at work and you were at daycare. The police found evidence he was planning to take you. He went to prison for stalking and breaking and entering. While he was incarcerated, your mother and I fell in love. We got married when you were 3, and I legally adopted you shortly after. My mind raced to process this information. But my birth certificate was reissued after the adoption. Your original listed Michael Anderson as your father. And the locket he wears? Dad's expression darkened. He broke into our house once, before he was sentenced. Took some of Grace's jewelry, including a locket similar to the one you have. The police never recovered it. The one you have was a replacement I got for her after the break-in. The restaurant seemed too loud suddenly, too bright. Why didn't you ever tell me? At first, you were too young. Then your mother got sick, and it never seemed like the right time to burden you with this history. After she died. He looked down. I wanted to protect her memory. And selfishly, I wanted to remain the only father you'd ever known. You were my daughter in every way that mattered. When you and I fought, I said slowly, when you told me to leave, did you think I wouldn't come back? Like she tried to leave him? Pain flashed across his face. God, Jessica, no. I was angry, yes, but I never meant for us to stop speaking entirely. I tried calling a few weeks later, but you didn't answer. I sent cards to your old address. When they came back returned to sender, I thought you were making it clear you didn't want contact. I moved, I said. I never got any cards. And I changed my number last year when we relocated to Portland for Diane's job. I tried to get your new address from Megan once, but she said you'd talk to me when you were ready. The realization that we'd both been waiting for the other to make a move hit me hard. What about the therapy Aunt Susan mentioned? Dad looked surprised, then nodded. After 2 years without you, I fell into a depression. Diane convinced me to get help. He glanced at her gratefully. The therapist helped me understand how my reaction to your concerns about selling the house triggered abandonment fears in you. And how my own unresolved grief over your mother made me rush into changes without properly including you. Diane spoke for the first time. Jessica, I never wanted to replace your mother or erase her memory. I made mistakes too, moving too quickly into your family space without understanding what it meant to you. I sat in stunned silence, trying to absorb everything. So Michael Anderson is a dangerous man, my father finished firmly. He was sentenced to 15 years not just for what he did to your mother, but for identity theft and fraud schemes he ran from prison. The fact that he's found you now is deeply concerning. He knows where I live, I said, the reality sinking in. He sent the letter to my apartment. We should go to the police, Diane suggested. His probation likely includes restrictions on contacting victims. I wasn't his victim, I pointed out. Mom was. You were part of the original restraining order, Dad explained. And as her only child, you're connected to the case. The police should know he's trying to insert himself into your life. As we discussed next steps, I found myself studying my father's face, the familiar creases around his eyes, the way he rubbed his thumb against his index finger when worried, habits I'd known my entire life. Biologically related or not, this was the man who had taught me to ride a bike, who had held me through nightmares, who had shown me how to see the world through a camera lens. I have the adoption papers, he said, reaching into his jacket. I brought them in case you wanted proof. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were yellowed legal documents with both his and my mother's signatures, court stamps from 25 years ago, and my name, Jessica Grace Anderson, now legally Jessica Grace Palmer. He kept her maiden name as your middle name, Dad explained quietly. Grace wanted you to have that connection to her family. The restaurant around us continued its lunchtime bustle, but at our table, decades of secrets unfolded in hushed tones. Dad explained how he and Mom had planned to tell me the truth when I turned 18, but her diagnosis came just months before my 15th birthday, changing everything. She made me promise to tell you when the time was right, he admitted. I failed at that. I'm sorry, Jessica. Diane, who had remained largely silent, finally spoke again. Your father has your mother's photograph album in our car. The real one, with pictures from your entire childhood. We thought you might want it. We kept all her things, Dad added. After you left that day, I couldn't go through with selling much of anything. We've moved to a smaller house, but her books, her quilts, her photos, they're all carefully packed. They're your history, Jess. Whenever you want them. I felt tears threatening and took a deep breath. I'd like to see the album. As Dad went to retrieve it from their car, Diane surprised me by reaching across the table to touch my hand lightly. He never stopped loving you, Jessica. The night of your photography exhibition, the one you invited him to, he drove all the way to Seattle. He sat in his car outside the gallery for an hour, too afraid you'd reject him if he went in. He is every article about your work, every social media post friends share with him. He's never stopped being your father. Dad returned with a leather-bound album I recognized immediately, the family photo album that had always lived on our coffee table. As I opened it, 25 years of memories stared back at me. My entire childhood documented by the two people who had chosen to be my parents. What do we do about Michael? I asked, looking up from a photo of my 6th birthday party. First, we go to the police, Dad said firmly. Then, if you're willing. I'd like to try to rebuild what we lost. The thing about identity, Dr. Landry said during our session the following week, is that it's both more rigid and more fluid than we like to think. I'd been seeing her twice weekly since the revelations about Michael Anderson. The Portland police had taken my statement, confirmed he was violating terms of his release by contacting me, and assured us they would handle the situation. A restraining order was now in place, and Michael had been relocated to a different facility under stricter supervision. How do you mean? I asked, curled into my usual corner of her office sofa. The biological facts of your parentage haven't changed, they were always true, just unknown to you. Yet your entire sense of self feels dramatically altered by this knowledge. She wasn't wrong. Learning about Michael had sent me into an identity crisis unlike anything I'd experienced before. Who was I if not exactly who I'd always thought? Did this new information change me fundamentally? I keep looking in the mirror expecting to see something different, I admitted. Some physical evidence of this other person's DNA. And do you? I shook my head. I still just look like me. Like my mom. That's because you are still you, Jessica. The narrative has changed, but the person living that narrative remains the same. Over the following weeks, I did my own research into Michael Anderson's background, needing to understand the full picture now that the initial shock had worn off. Court records confirmed everything my father had told me. Michael had a history of domestic violence before my mother, subsequent stalking charges, and fraud convictions while incarcerated. The psychological evaluation from his most recent parole hearing described him as having narcissistic tendencies and difficulty accepting responsibility for past actions. The police investigation revealed he had been gathering information about me for months, using public records and social media to piece together enough details to seem convincing. The mistakes in his letter, about Berkeley and Montana, came from confusing me with another Jessica Palmer he'd found online. In late April, a month after the truth came out, I invited my father and Diane to my apartment for dinner. Tyler helped me prepare, more nervous than I was about meeting the man he'd heard so much about. "What if he doesn't like me?" he asked, straightening his shirt for the third time. "He'll like you," I assured him, though my own stomach was in knots. The reunion was awkward at first, all of us hyper-aware of the 3-year gap and the emotional landmines we needed to navigate. Dad brought a housewarming gift, a vintage photography book I'd admired as a teenager, and tears sprang to my eyes at the realization he still remembered such details. Diane, to my surprise, proved easy to talk to when not viewed through the lens of perceived betrayal. Her kindergarten teacher stories were genuinely funny, and her obvious love for my father was evident in small gestures throughout the evening. "Your photos are remarkable," she said, studying my wall display. "You have a gift for capturing emotion." "She gets that from her mother," Dad said, joining us. Grace could see beneath the surface of things. The casual mention of my mother, without tension or avoidance, felt like a small miracle. After dinner, while Tyler and Diane cleared dishes, Dad and I stepped onto my small balcony with cups of coffee. "I sold the house," he said after a moment of comfortable silence. "But I was wrong to do it without talking to you first. Without honoring what it meant to you." "I understand why you wanted a fresh start," I replied. "I was wrong too, acting like I had the only claim to Mom's memory." He nodded, looking out at the Seattle skyline. "I've been thinking about our Sunday photo walks. I miss those." "Me too. Maybe, if you're not busy this weekend." He hesitated. "There's supposed to be good light at Discovery Park." The suggestion hung in the air between us, an olive branch in the form of a shared passion. "I'd like that," I said. And I meant it. The healing wasn't instantaneous or simple. Dad and I started with monthly photo walks that gradually increased in frequency. We talked about safe topics at first, photography techniques, work projects, current events, before slowly working our way to the harder conversations about my mother, about Michael, about the years of silence between us. During one walk along Alki Beach in early summer, I finally asked the question that had been nagging me. "Do you ever regret adopting me? Knowing where I came from?" Dad stopped walking and turned to face me fully, his expression serious. "Jessica Grace Palmer, you listen to me. Not for one second, not for one breath, have I ever regretted being your father. Biology doesn't make family. Love does. Showing up does. The day you were placed in my arms as a toddler was the day I became a dad, and nothing, not genetics, not arguments, not years apart, could ever change that." In July, I met Diane for lunch without Dad. Something I wouldn't have imagined possible months earlier. She brought photos of their new house, including the room they'd prepared for me to stay in when visiting. "I want you to know," she said as we finished our meals, "that I never tried to erase your mother from your father's life. I know how important she is, to both of you. I just wanted to find my own place in the family." "I understand that now," I said, meaning it. "I was so afraid of losing the connection to Mom that I couldn't see you were just trying to build your own." By August, I had filled the gaps in my understanding of my early history. Dad shared the full story of how he and Mom met, fell in love, and decided to build a family together despite the complicated circumstances. He gave me letters my mother had written during their courtship, love notes that revealed her hopes and fears. "She wanted to tell you the truth herself," he explained one evening. "She had this idea that on your 18th birthday, we'd sit you down together and explain everything. She thought you were mature enough to understand by then. And after she died? I couldn't bear to change your perception of her. Of us. It was selfish, maybe. I just wanted to preserve the family we'd built. In September, exactly 6 months after reconnecting with my father, I held my new photography exhibition. The theme, Identity, What Makes Us Who We Are, featured portrait series and still lives exploring the concept of self through changing perspectives. The central installation was a triptych of mirrors surrounded by photographs from different periods of my life. Visitors could see themselves reflected among my visual autobiography, becoming part of the narrative while contemplating their own. Dad, Diane, Tyler, and Megan all attended the opening night. As we stood before the main installation, Dad put his arm around my shoulders, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache with the memory of its absence. "Your mother would be so proud," he said quietly. "Not just of your work, but of who you've become." Later that evening, I gave a short speech to the gathered crowd, my chosen family in the front row. "Identity isn't static," I told them. "It's built in layers, some we're born with, others we choose, still others thrust upon us without warning. The person I am today is the sum of all these layers, all these truths layered atop one another like a palimpsest." I touched the new locket around my neck, a gift from Tyler, containing 2 photos, my mother on one side, my father on the other. What makes us who we are isn't the genetics we inherit or even the circumstances of our birth. It's the love we're given, the choices we make, and perhaps most importantly, the truths we're brave enough to face. As the exhibition wound down that night, Dad helped me pack up some extra programs. "You know," he said, "I always thought parenthood was about what I could teach you. It turns out, you've taught me more than I ever imagined possible." "What's that?" I asked. "That truth, however painful, is always better than comforting lies. That forgiveness isn't a single act but a daily choice. And that family isn't defined by blood, but by who stays when it would be easier to leave." I looked around at the gallery, at Tyler chatting with Diane, at Megan arranging a ride share for an elderly visitor, at the photographs documenting my journey, and felt a profound sense of peace settle over me. The truth had nearly destroyed us, but ultimately, it had set us free. The person I'd been before Michael's letter still existed. The person I'd become since discovering the truth had more depth, more complexity, more compassion. Both were real. Both were me. If you're watching this and struggling with your own identity or family secrets, I hope my story brings some comfort. Sometimes the most painful truths lead to the most profound healing. Life isn't about the hand we're dealt, but how we play the cards. Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed how you saw yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe to see more stories like this one, and hit that share button to help others who might be going through something similar. Thank you for watching, and remember that whatever truth you're facing, you're not facing it alone.